Today's video starts here, but it's going to be a little different from my memories of the San Fernando Valley videos. Now, I grew up here in the Valley, but my entire life, every day, my dad would wake up and he would drive 30 miles to work. And a lot of days I went with him. So today we're going to be taking a little journey out that way to talk about my memories of the Boyle Heights, East LA area. Let's go see what we can find. Now, I've talked before about how I lived a lot of different places here in the Valley. I think I actually lived about 7 different places with my family in the Valley. This is on Newcastle Street, just off of Van Noen and White Oak. And this is the last neighborhood that I ever lived with my parents. Actually, this house right here, I lived in this house with my parents right up until the day my dad passed away, and we lived here about probably 7 years, which is probably the longest that we ever lived in one spot. So my dad would get up every morning around 5:30 or 6, and then he would leave the Valley and get to work around 7 or 7:30. And he didn't have set hours. He was just there until all the work got done. He would get home anywhere from 5 o'clock in the evening till sometimes 8:30 at night, Monday through Friday, and then he usually would go in on Sunday morning for just a couple of hours just to get stuff ready for the next day. And when he did that, I would usually go with him. I would always bug him on Saturday. Don't forget to wake me up tomorrow. You better not forget. And then we would get to his work, and after about a half hour, I'd be like, "Are you almost done? I want to go home." And then the very next Saturday, I'd be bugging him again. "Don't forget to wake me up tomorrow." When I was about 7 or 8 years old, my mom had to have pretty serious surgery, and she was in the hospital for about a week, and my parents didn't have anything else to do with me, so I had to go to work with my dad for that entire week. And it was pretty exciting because that was the first time I got to see my dad's work really in action. Like, I got to see the full production. Now, a little bit later in life, when I was about 18 or 19 years old, by this time my dad's job had laid off everybody except for him and one other guy. And that other guy had to go away for a while. I think it was about 6 to 9 months, depending on his behavior. So my dad convinced his boss to hire me temporarily to replace that guy. And so I got to work with my dad for a little bit less than a year. It was because of all of these things that I went down to that area so much. And I just have a lot of memories of that area. Now, a lot of them take place at my dad's job, but there's also some memories of the surrounding area. And today I want to revisit those memories and share them with you. This area right here was always one of my favorite parts of the drive out to his work, because I would just be staring at Universal Studios, fantasizing about going there, hoping that one day my dad would pull off the freeway and, be like, surprise! Now, I do have one other memory of driving with my dad through this area on the way to his work, and this one blows my mind because it's just more proof of how important music is to us. We were listening to the Rick D's Weekly Top 40. They played Black Velvet by Alana Miles. Now, every time I hear that song, I think of driving past Universal Studios. On that very same episode, Rick D's played Room at the Top by Adam Ant. Years later, when I saw Adam Ant in concert, he played Room at the Top, and I instantly remembered driving through this area with my dad. This is even crazier. I actually have a couple of the Rick D's Weekly Top 40 vinyls. These are the actual records that they would send to radio stations for them to play the record that weekend. I just recently acquired the one of that show. I just think it's crazy that how that memory kind of keeps coming back in my life. Another reason that I loved passing through this area was because of this building right over here, which at the time, this was a special effects place that made movie cars. And so my dad would always point out all of the cool movie cars that looked like spaceships and stuff. We would almost always take the 101 all the way out there. Sometimes my dad would get off and he would cut through Hollywood or downtown Los Angeles. I wish I had more memories of the times that my dad would get off the freeway and drive through Hollywood, but I do remember this building behind me next to the Pantages Theater. It always had a large mural on the side, and I specifically remember the one of John McEnroe. And I think for the longest time, I actually thought that was James Dean. I also remember one time coming back from my dad's work, and it was the day of the LA Marathon. And my dad drove on part of the route, and there wasn't any runners in that area anymore. But we then saw a guy on the route with no legs doing the marathon on his hands. And the next day, my dad showed me in the newspaper, there he was. They did a story about him doing the entire marathon on his hands. You know, as a kid, I didn't know that that was even possible, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was definitely inspiring. But most of the time, we would just take the 101 the entire way, and I remember passing by all of these murals, all of which are gone now. They redid these some years back, and I was really excited when they redid them because it brought back a lot of memories, but it didn't take long for people to just graffiti over them. So we would normally come over here where the 101, the 60, and the 5 all meet up, and then we would exit Soto Street. Now this was another donut shop that we would hit up sometimes right on the corner of 8th and Soto, just because it was right off the freeway. So if we didn't go to one in the valley, then we would hit this one up when we got off the freeway. And I can't believe that it's still here all these years later. Now here's a building that's definitely stuck in my memories from coming down here, the Sears Tower on Olympic. And that's because you see this building right when you get off the Soto exit, off in the distance. So I just remember always seeing this building and always passing by it. Now this building opened up in 1927, and the tower and all of those upper levels were used for mail order up until 1992. And the first level, that was the retail store. Now after they shut down the mail order, all of those upper levels were just abandoned. You can see how a lot of the windows are broken out. Now the retail store actually remained open until 2021, which I had no idea. I thought this building was abandoned long before that. And am I the only one that finds the Sears Tower really creepy? Like, I'm just sitting here right now looking at all of those broken windows. Like these ones right up here at the top. I'm picturing all of a sudden someone walking up to one of those windows and looking at me from inside. They should have a haunted house here. I wouldn't go, but they should have one. You know, I don't know if I ever realized just how big this building is. I mean, it's an entire city block. It's massive. And it makes you realize just how big Sears was back in the day. I mean, the catalog alone, the Sears catalog, was such a huge business. And like I said, the Sears catalog was run out of this building, and so that's why it's so large. Yeah, it's crazy to think how massive Sears was as a company, and then it's just gone, just nothing. Everyone just stopped caring about Sears until one day they were just out of business. So right now we're on Olympic, and my dad's work is right down here, just a couple of blocks right off of Olympic on Lorena. And we're about to pass by Estrada Courts, which is some housing projects that have been here for a really long time. And this is one of the things that I really remember about coming down here, because we passed by Estrada Courts every single time that I came to my dad's work. And these are famous for the murals that they have on them. And you can actually see these murals if you watch the music video.
This is for the raza. This is for the raza.
And I remember being really excited when I saw that music video, because I had passed by Estrada Courts so many times, and that was kind of like the first time that I got excited about seeing a filming location, you know, seeing something on TV that I recognized, that I knew where it was. And that's the first time that I can remember getting excited about that. And it's funny that I bring up filming locations while I'm sitting at this corner, because actually right here behind me, this used to be a little donut shop, and this was used in the movie Stand and Deliver. Estrada Quartz was built during World War II because of a housing shortage, and it was unique because it wasn't segregated. It had no racial restrictions, something that was rare in the housing projects back then. Now, all of these murals that you see are considered the birth site of the 1970s Chicano mural movement. And honestly, I cannot believe that all of these murals are still here. Now, you can tell that they've been touched up because obviously they fade over time, so they had to redo them. But for the most part, these are the same murals that I remember passing by when I was a kid. One of the things that I loved about coming to work with my dad was getting to eat different food. And one of my favorite places to eat around here was Jim's Burgers. Now, right here behind me, this is where Jim's was, 3200 Olympic Boulevard on the corner of Olympic and Grande Vista, right across the street from the Estrada Quartz. And this is also right around the corner from my dad's work, and that's why we would come here a lot, and I absolutely loved it. The building has since been torn down. However, the frame of the sign is still there. That's the only thing that remains. I loved coming here. My favorite thing to get was they had this cheeseburger where they would take a hot dog and they would slice it down the middle and then open it up like a book and put it on the grill and fry it till it got nice and crispy, and they would put it on the cheeseburger, and I loved it. And then right across the street from Jim's Burgers, you have a gas station. It's now a Chevron station, but back in the day, this used to be Wally's Texaco. And I bring this up because if you're from this area, maybe you remember when it was Wally's Texaco station. And the reason why I remember that is because this is the gas station that my dad's work used. This is where they would bring all of their delivery trucks to get serviced and to fill them up with gas. And because of that, my dad knew Wally, and he would come home and tell me stories. Right back there is the garages. That's where they would service all of the cars. And it's been multiple gas stations since then. But to me, it will always be Wally's Texaco. You make a right off of Olympic, and this was my dad's work. This was a drive that I made so many times, making that right turn onto Lorena Street. And there it is, that red brick building. And it's so crazy that up until recently, absolutely nothing has changed on this building. But within like the last 2 years, the new owner put these security gates. And before that, it was just a chain link fence. And I know this building like the back of my hand. Like, I know every inch of this building. I can picture it. I can still smell every part of this building. Like, if I think about going into the office, I remember what that smells like, the warehouse, the main factory, everything. Oh, and in case you're wondering what my dad did for a living, I keep talking about his work, but I haven't mentioned what this place was. My dad made printer's ink. So basically, any product that you have in your house right now, the packaging, my dad would have made the ink for it. So a box of Tide, he made the ink that went on the box. So I gotta be honest, it feels kind of weird to be standing here. I have not stood in front of this building since my dad passed away. And he did pass away inside of this building. Not gonna talk about that too much. Maybe in another video, that's something that I'll talk about a little bit more. But wanna just kind of talk about the good memories that I have here. But it does definitely feel weird to be standing here. I could go on for hours and hours talking about all the memories that I have inside of this building. While my dad was inside working, just running around on these docks, pretending like I was riding a motorcycle, doing figure eights and jumping off the docks, or standing up there pretending like it was a stage and I was giving a concert, running around inside of the building, which, I mean, this was a factory. It was dangerous. There were mixers with sharp blades, and there were mills with rollers. Definitely was not a place where kids should be running around. Oh, all kinds of chemicals, like really, really harsh chemicals. I should not have been running around there, but I was. Now, another memory that I have here, this is one that will always stay with me. It took place right over here, and it was that week that I came to work with my dad. And one of the days we were leaving, we were the last ones here. My dad was always the last one to leave, and he had his truck parked right here in the driveway, facing this way, and we came out that door. That was the door that leads to the office. He locked the door, and we put my boombox. I always brought my boombox with me. We put it in the truck, and then he remembered that he forgot to set the alarm. We went through that door, we went inside, up the stairs, he set the alarm. We were in there less than a minute, came back out, and my boombox was gone. And I mean, if you look around, like, there's not people walking around here. This is just businesses. It's just, you know, it's an industrial area. Inside the boombox was my Run DMC cassette tape. When we left, before going to visit my mom at the hospital, we went to, I want to say it was Target. It might have been Gemco or Kmart, but we went and he got me another boombox, and I was kind of happy that my boombox got stolen, because that's when I got my Lloyd's 4-speaker boombox, and I loved that thing. I thought it was louder because it had 4 speakers. It wasn't louder, it just had 4 speakers, but I loved it. I carried it everywhere. He never did replace the Run DMC cassette tape, so I didn't, it was a long time before I had that tape again. All right, if we come around to the back side of the building, this was just called the backyard, and it's this outdoor area, and this is where they made a different type of ink. So inside the building, they made, I think it was oil-based ink, and then back here, they made solvent-based inks. Also, I'm remembering that week that I came here with my dad, he was working back here, and right on the other side of this gate, he had his truck parked, and I was in the back of the truck breakdancing. In my head, I looked like Boogaloo Shrimp, but you know, I'm sure I was just jumping around. And my dad's coworker and friend, Doyle, came walking out to talk to my dad. He was an older white guy from Oklahoma, and he just kind of stared at me for a minute and was like, you know, "Are you okay? Do we need to call someone?" I'm like, "Doyle, I'm breakdancing." Now across the street from the backyard, this building right over here on the corner, I don't know what this is now, but around that time that I worked here, this was a crematorium. And again, my dad made friends with the people that worked over here, and he would tell me stories about the stories that they would tell him about, like, you know, hiding where the bodies were and waiting to jump out at the other workers to scare them, you know, stupid stuff like that. But I remember that when I worked here, I would be in the backyard and I would smell this really awful smell. And then I would look and you would see smoke coming out of the building. You can actually see right up there, there's the smokestack, and you would see black smoke pouring out of that, and that's how you knew that they were burning a body. And it always bothered me. I can still remember what it smelled like. And I actually remember one time that I was working here in the backyard, and it was raining, and I started to smell that smell, and I looked out the gate and I saw the black smoke, and I instantly thought of Return of the Living Dead. Oh my God, there goes the black smoke. I guess maybe it is still a crematorium. Unbelievable that while I'm sitting here talking about this. Anyways, like I was saying, it was raining and the black smoke, and I instantly thought of Return of the Living Dead. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to rain the dead bodies down on me. I've got to get inside. Oh my gosh, there's more of the smoke. So it turns out that it is still a crematorium. And when I looked it up to see if it was, I found something pretty shocking that I had no idea about. I found an article from the late 90s, which is when I would have been working down there, that says they got in trouble when it was discovered that they had at least 24 unrefrigerated bodies decomposing in the hallway. There were bodies stacked 5 high, and this is really gross, rotting and oozing onto the floor. Now this is after they already got put on probation in 1994 for lying to people, telling them that their loved ones had already been cremated and their ashes scattered at sea. Now again, this was in the 90s. I have no idea if it's the same owners, but that's what was going on then. There was one time leaving my dad's work when I was a little bit older, maybe a teenager, and we were driving through one of these neighborhoods around his work, and a car cut my dad off. And the guy inside the car is someone that looked like he was probably a gang member. And when he cut my dad off, my dad honked at him. And I was like, Dad, what are you doing? Are you crazy? My dad, again, he just had that angry, straight, serious look on his face. And he gave me the side eye. And he just said, "Es mi barrio." And I laughed so hard. You know, I didn't realize my dad had been coming here for, you know, like half of his life. And this really was like a second home to him. This was his neighborhood. And then I also realized that he had probably watched too many of my movies with me, Blood In, Blood Out, and American Me, and Colors, and it was starting to rub off on him.
Mi barrio.
That made me laugh so hard, and I will never forget that. There was this section of the 710 freeway that we would drive down sometimes, and whenever we would get to that area, the smell was so overwhelming, I would instantly plug my nose and be like, "Oh my gosh, what is that smell?" And my dad would just laugh and say bandini. And I had no idea what he was talking about, and I then quickly learned that he was talking about the Bandini fertilizer factory, which used to be right here. I don't think we ever actually passed by this factory. I always just smelled it from the freeway, which is like, I don't know, about a half a mile back that way. So pretty crazy to think how much the odor consumed this entire area. I can't even imagine what it would have been like to work here. I guess you probably get used to it after a while. Now, at one point, Bandini was the largest supplier of fertilizer, but in 1998, the owner sold the business and eventually they shut down this factory. But if you take a really big whiff, you can still smell Bandini Mountain.
Bandini Mountain. Man dares to go where only cows have gone before.
So this last location that we're gonna go to today is the one that I was most excited to see. Even though it doesn't look anything like it did, but I had been searching for this location for a couple of years, and so I am so excited to finally find this spot. When I was 11 years old, about to turn 12, I was going to work with my dad. I always had my skateboard, but he told me to bring my pads with me, which was kind of weird. And the reason why is after we left his work, he surprised me because they opened up a brand new indoor skate park in East LA, and he surprised me by bringing me there. And it was absolutely amazing. It was one of the coolest things ever, and for years I had been trying to figure out what that park was and where it was, and I finally found it. It was located right here on Atlantic Boulevard in East LA. This used to be Transitions Skate Park. It's now an auto repair shop, but this was the skate park. This used to be part of this building. This was the indoor skate park, and then right here in this outdoor area, they had a large vert ramp. If I remember correctly, I think it was an 11-foot tall vert ramp. And then on the other side of it, they had a 6-foot tall, I think a 6-foot tall mini ramp. And we parked, and I remember just standing right here on the sidewalk, staring at this vert ramp, amazed and very intimidated. And then we eventually went into the skate park. That right there would have been the front door. They've widened the entrance so they can get a car in there, but that's where the front door would have been. And then right inside would have been the pro shop, and that's where you paid. And I remember seeing all of these posters for castle contests. So my dad paid for me, and then I went into the skate park, and it was like any other indoor skate park. They had a bunch of quarter pipes and rails and, you know, some type of a pyramid in the middle. There was a quarter pipe that was, I don't know, like maybe around 4 feet tall, but it was kind of steep. And for some reason, I was having trouble dropping in, like I was scared to drop in. And right next to it, there was a chain link fence, and that was the viewing area. And I remember my dad was standing there holding onto the chain link fence, watching me with just a huge smile on his face. He was pushing me to drop in on that quarter pipe, like being very encouraging. And he was, it was about to be my 12th birthday, and he was gonna build me a mini ramp for my 12th birthday. And he was saying to me, if you can't drop in on this, you're not gonna be able to drop in on the mini ramp. You can do it, just, you know, don't think about it, just do it. And I eventually did it and it was no big deal, but that was always my dad, always being encouraging. And then in the back of the building, there was a divider, and on the other side of that divider, there was like a 3 or 4 foot tall mini ramp that had a spine. And I had never skated a spine ramp before. That was really awesome. And I spent a lot of my time on that spine ramp. Again, just feeling so intimidated, trying to figure out how everything worked. Like, I didn't know when it was my time to go. And I actually remember there was an older guy standing next to me, and I turned to him and asked him, "Are you gonna go next?" And he wouldn't even look at me. He was just like, "I don't know." And I was like, "Okay, cool, yeah, let me know." I was such a dork, but the entire experience was so awesome. And I only got to stay here for about an hour. And then my dad was like, "All right, come on, we got to get going. Your mom's going to be worried." And that was it. That was the one and only time I ever got to skate transitions before it closed down. And I don't think my dad had any idea how much it meant to me, what an amazing experience it was, and how that memory would stick with me my entire life. And I really wish that he was here so that I could tell him how much it meant to me and thank him for bringing me to this skate park. And I'm so thankful that my dad brought me here and that I have that memory, and I'll have that memory forever. I'm so happy that I finally found it. And with that happy memory, I'm gonna end this video. Thank you for coming with me on this little journey down memory lane. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.